places. With every technological advance, we uncover more about these strange nomads of the galaxy, broadening our knowledge of the vast universe we inhabit. Now, let's take a closer look at the strange and surprising things that happen to your body when you're living in space. Here's a slightly gross but fascinating fact about being in space: your skin starts falling off, especially from your feet. In the microgravity environment of space, the calluses on your feet don't have to handle pressure from walking, so they just start peeling away. And we're not talking small flakes, these are big chunks that just drift away into the cabin. If you're a bit squeamish about things like peeling skin, then being an astronaut might be more challenging than you think. This is just one of those weird things that happen to your body when you're living in space. Jupiter is pretty massive as planets in our solar system go, but it's actually small compared to the biggest planet found out there in space. This giant is called Dennis P. Planet, and it's huge, about 28.5 times bigger than Jupiter. It's got so much mass that some space scientists think it might not really be a planet at all. They suggest it could be a brown dwarf star, which is kind of a mix between a star and a planet. Imagine a star at the end of its life blowing up in a huge explosion. That's a supernova. The one named Assassin 15LH is the hottest and brightest one we've ever seen. It reached a temperature of about 100 billion Kelvin. Just to give you an idea, that's way hotter than anything we experience on Earth. In terms of brightness, it was about 570 billion times brighter than our Sun, which is pretty incredible. It's like a cosmic fireworks show that outshines all others. Back when we started sending things into space, a lot of different animals, like cats and dogs, and even a few fruit flies, were sent up to see how living things handle the conditions in space. But there was one type of animal that really thrived: the water bear, or tardigrade. These tiny creatures are tough as nails and can survive some really extreme conditions, even the harsh environment of space. They can endure intense cold, scorching heat, and even dangerous radiation. Tardigrades are so resilient that they've become a fascinating subject of study for scientists looking into the possibilities of life in extreme conditions. It's like they were built for space travel. Life on Earth could fundamentally alter in ways we might only fully understand far into the future. While some scientists look at Mars as a potential new home for humans, Venus is a whole different story. The conditions on Venus are incredibly extreme and harsh. The temperature on its surface is around 500 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead. The atmospheric pressure is crushing, equivalent to being 2,952 feet underwater on Earth. To top it all off, Venus experiences constant acid rain. These hostile conditions make Venus an unlikely candidate for human habitation. It's a prime example of how extreme and unforgiving the conditions on other planets can be. Let's talk about the endgame for our solar system. We've got lots of theories about how the universe might say goodbye, but our solar system's finale is pretty straightforward. Our Sun, which is currently happily burning hydrogen, won't be able to do that forever. Eventually, it'll run out of hydrogen fuel and start to expand, turning into what's known as a red giant. This expansion will be so massive that it'll eventually swallow up all the planets close to it, including ours. It's a direct and fiery ending. Imagine needing an unimaginably high sunblock to stand any chance. With new ideas about how the universe might end, let's find out what happens if you find yourself alone and unprotected in space. Surviving space: why you need a spacesuit. Ever wondered what would happen if you just popped out into space without a spacesuit? It's a short and not so sweet experience. First off, you'd have about 15 seconds before you pass out because there's no oxygen out there. But that's not the worst part. If you forgot to exhale before leaving your spaceship, the lack of atmospheric pressure in space would cause the air left in your lungs to expand, likely causing them to burst. So, a little free advice: if you ever find yourself in space without a suit, remember to breathe out. Let's meet KELT 9b, the scorching hot planet far beyond our solar neighborhood. This planet isn't just warm, it's sizzling at around 4,600 kelvins. To put that in perspective, that's just a tad cooler than the surface of our Sun, which is about 5,800 kelvins. Why so hot? Well, it orbits super close to its star, KELT 9, which is like living next door to a blazing furnace. The intense heat makes every day on KELT 9b feel like the peak of summer, but magnified 1,000 times. Space is incredibly cold, nearly as cold as it can possibly get. Scientists have figured out that the average temperature out there is around -270 degrees Celsius, or -454 degrees Fahrenheit. That's only a few degrees above absolute zero, which is the lowest temperature anything can ever be, sitting at 0 Kelvin. At absolute zero, particles stop moving because there's no heat energy left. So, space is not just a bit chilly, it's almost as cold gets. Keep watching for more Currently, when you step outside on a clear night, you can see a beautiful display of stars scattered across the sky. But imagine a time, way in the future, when you might look up and see nothing but darkness. That's what scientists are predicting. They say that in about 1 trillion years, the expanding universe will stretch out so much that those stars will fade away, leaving us with a permanently dark sky. No more stargazing, just endless night. Thinking about the vastness of space, it seems almost certain that there are other beings out there. With billions of stars, many with their own planets, how could there not be some form of life besides us? However, finding that life is a huge challenge. As the universe grows, galaxies move further and further apart. This makes the idea of traveling between them, potentially to meet our cosmic neighbors, extremely difficult without technology that can surpass the speed of light. So, while the possibility of aliens is exciting, actually meeting them might forever be just out of reach. Solar superstorms, or geomagnetic storms, are intense disturbances in space weather triggered by massive solar eruptions. These events can interfere with our technological systems on Earth and pose a serious risk to our contemporary way of life. A famous example of such a storm is the Carrington event of 1859, which disrupted telegraph systems and created auroras visible as far south as Cuba and Hawaii. If a similar event were to happen today, the consequences could be severe, potentially knocking out power grids, satellites, and communication networks on a grand scale. These powerful storms originate from coronal mass ejections, CMEs, huge releases of plasma and magnetic fields from the Sun's outer atmosphere, or corona. When these CMEs collide with Earth, they interact with its magnetic field, leading to geomagnetic storms. These storms can generate electric currents in power lines and pipelines, causing extensive power failures and damage to electrical infrastructure. The effect on power grids can be particularly devastating, potentially damaging transformers and other crucial components beyond repair. One of the greatest dangers of solar superstorms lies in their ability to disrupt global communication systems. Satellites that are crucial for GPS, telecommunication, and weather forecasting are at risk from the high-energy particles released during these storms. When these satellites get hit, it can lead to significant losses in communication and navigation capabilities, vital for everyday life and national security. Furthermore, these charged particles can wreak havoc on electronic devices and data centers, causing data loss and equipment failures. Another significant threat is to the internet infrastructure. The undersea fiber optic cables that connect the world rely on repeaters to amplify the signal across long distances. These repeaters are vulnerable to damage from geomagnetic storms. If a large number of them were to fail, it could disrupt internet services worldwide, leading to what some call an internet apocalypse. Such a scenario would impact a wide range of services from banking and healthcare to personal communications and transportation. The Sun follows an approximately 11-year cycle of solar activity, referred to as the solar cycle. During the solar maximum, the peak period of this cycle, the likelihood of solar superstorms increases. Observations indicate that the current cycle, solar cycle 25, might reach its peak sooner and be more intense than earlier anticipated, raising the odds of a major solar storm affecting Earth. Forecasting these solar superstorms is a complex task.